All right, so on today's podcast, Dave and myself go on a little bit of a road trip around Schenectady, and we find ourselves at a local bar that has plenty of local beer and it's staying local, at least for the near future. So that's coming up in the third episode of the Capital Brew Podcast.
The Capital Brew Podcast with 20 North Dave and Nick Lee. What's brewing in the 518?
All right, Dave, so today we went on a little bit of a road trip. I enjoyed it. We had a great time. We got to see the sights of Schenectady.
Yes.
It's a little hot out there today.
Very.
For those that are listening now, not that it matters, but today, to give you a point of reference, it is National Wing Day today.
Is it really? I didn't even know that.
It's National Wing Day.
I probably should have known that considering my position.
I could be wrong. Your bartender, Lee, told me that.
It's also Wing Wednesday, so I guess it's coincidental.
Oh, maybe that's what he was talking
Maybe that's what he was talking about. It's Wing Wednesday.
All right, also,
Every day is National Wing Day here.
If you notice, I'm not wearing socks.
Is that a fashion statement?
It's not a fashion statement. My father bought a new toy, and we tested it out today. He got.
You didn't tell me what it was, though.
I don't even know what it is. It's a sailboat.
Way beyond my ken.
It has a motor on it. We went down to Glenville, off of right behind the park and ride. There's a RV park where they allowed him to put his boat in the water for like $6, and we went down to the lock and we parked at the lock for a little while, hung out, watched some boats go to the lock, and then we came back. It was the first time that boat has ever touched water,
and it didn't sink.
It did not sink, and
that's one thing.
It looked like that was the first thing it was going to do. So I'm not wearing socks right now because there was a point in time where my dad decided to wear work boots, and he was looking at the water, and I was looking at the water, and I was like, oh, okay, let me jump in. So I jumped in and tied up the boat and everything, so I'm not wearing socks. That was my morning.
That's your job. You're a son.
It was a beautiful day. I really enjoyed it. And then we got back. I came back to Schenectady directly after that, and we went on a walkabout. Where did we end up?
Well, we tried to hit a couple breweries locally, and we realized that our timing was off, that they didn't open till 4, and we were wandering around at like 2:30. So we ended up going to Firestone 151.
Yes.
Is that correct?
I don't know. I think it might just be called 151 Bar
really?
and Grill now.
Oh, that's distinctly possible. We saw my friend Kevin McClurkin, the bar manager over there.
And does he not have a head full of knowledge?
He is extremely knowledgeable about beers. Like, he makes us look like kindergartners.
If I was
we'll definitely have him on to correct all our mistakes and,
if I could see
and
into
our
the future,
lack of knowledge.
If I use my ESPN and I see into the future, I could foresee Kevin being on our podcast.
Without a doubt.
Soon.
He's probably so knowledgeable he replaced both of us. It'll be the Kevin McClurkin.
Hey, this isn't the Capital
podcast.
This isn't the Capital Brew expert podcast. We're not experts by any shape or form.
Nope.
We two guys who like to drink beer. You like to sling it, and you do a very good job at it. So that's how we are who we are.
Thank you.
No, thank you. So the very first beer that we had today, it was the Frog Alley Refresh IPA.
Yes, it was the Refresh, and I would say if you're looking for a beer that you would say is a traditional IPA, similar to most of you have probably at one time or another are familiar with Sierra Nevada, their pale ale, I would liken it to that beer. I don't want to say it's exactly the same, but you know where IPAs have gone nowadays, or they're generally, I would say it's a classic IPA before a lot of craft brewers started to use different hops, floral hops, adding citrus, stuff like that. It's darker than today's IPAs, but I would say on the other side, if you're not huge hoppy IPA drinker, you know, you want something more like a real pale ale, I would recommend this.
It was very crisp.
It was very good.
It was your traditional. It had some citrus flavor to it. Not, I wouldn't say straight up grapefruit, but it did have the citrus flavor to it. Very piney, very hoppy. So I really enjoyed it. I'm a fan of IPAs. I'm a fan and friend of ales. So yeah, like I said, it's a very citrusy beer, very piney. It was delicious. It was crisp. And it was a perfect roll into the next beer, because of the first beer, you know, the Refresh IPA, I thought was I thought it was a good beer. So the second beer that we had was the 1903 Vienna
Vienna Lager.
Lager. You see, he told us that it was very close to a very popular beer, Sam Adams. A little bit off, not exactly on, but I think your connection to the Yingling was a little bit more on.
And Yingling, I would say, them both being lagers, Yingling was a little, I would say, sweeter. That people who have had Yingling will know what I'm talking about. Like, it almost has like, and I think I'll credit Kevin. I want to say it was almost like a caramel flavor in it. It gives it kind of a sweetness, where this was much milder in terms of that. I think that I like it better than this. The Yingling, I think, is too sweet.
Yeah.
Once you've had a couple of them, it's kind of like sticky.
Yeah.
Whereas this wasn't so much. And I see where he's coming from, the Sam Adams. But the Sam Adams, when you drink like one of the Sam Adams Boston, it's a lot. It's a lot of flavor. It's a lot.
Very heavy too.
Very heavy. And I would not say that this Vienna Lager is heavy at all.
No,
I would
very
definitely
light,
say that you could have several and not be
almost a dry finish to it.
Yes, very mild and definitely much drier than a Sam Adams. Like a lot of flavor in your face there. Mm-hmm. Whereas Yingling doesn't have a ton of flavor, but it has that sweetness.
Dark,
it has that sweetness to it. Where this doesn't have it. I'd say if you were looking for something like Yingling, without that sweetness, that's right up your alley. No pun intended, actually.
Because it's from Agate?
Yeah. Hilarious.
Well, I really have yet to find a beer from Frog Alley that I haven't liked. So I'm sure that there is one or two, but it has to be more of a style thing. But so far, I've yet to find one. So,
I unfortunately, because we'd actually have preferred to actually go there and sample more beers at once. Unfortunately, this was all that 151 had on, so those were just our two choices. But I think in a future cast, we'll make an attempt to broaden the amount of beers that we'll try from each place, not just Frog Alley. It just so happens that where we were today had a couple different options that we had an opportunity to try, and hopefully bring it to everyone's attention what they have to offer.
For sure. Hopefully, we'll grab some cans. If not, I would love to have somebody from there on the podcast to discuss some of their beers and that kind of stuff. So,
well, yeah, we'd probably look to their brewer, who offhand I'm not sure who it is right now, but I'm sure they'd be more than happy for an opportunity to explain where they're coming from. Their thought process when it came to a lot of these beers. We can rate them. We can tell you what we think, but unfortunately we can't give you a lot of insight into what the process was of coming up with those beers.
Yeah, for sure. And they can.
That's that's their forte.
That's another great thing about Kevin, though, too, over at 151 is not that he's brewed beer, but he used to work for a local distributor.
Well, he worked for DiCrescenti, which isn't so much local. They're quite large.
Yeah, they are large, but they're out of Mechanicville.
Mechanicville. So being extremely local, but I want to say they'll distribute almost down to the city.
Yeah, but he knows a lot of the
ins
bars.
and outs.
Yeah, so he brought a lot he's going to bring a lot to the table, to the podcast when we have him on. And you're right. As soon as we get to hopefully to the point where we can start talking to some of these brewers about what goes into their process of a beer. For now, we just keep drinking them.
Yeah, as long as they keep making them.
Well,
we will keep drinking them.
We have one more beer to talk about today.
There's a couple others we had.
Do you want to talk about the Great Flats one, or you want to hold that for a Great Flats?
I think
episode?
Great Flats we should wait on that one, because we'll give them an opportunity for us to actually go there and hopefully speak with what do you say, it was Harry? I don't know.
Harry.
I don't even want to say if I don't know.
No, not the Whitmans, the Whalens. We'll go talk to the Whalen brothers who run Great Flats.
Yeah, that would be wise to get their insight before we started spouting a bunch of stuff about their beer.
Well, I will say that we did sample something of theirs today that is kind of a craze as of late when it comes to the bar industry, and it was delicious and refreshing. After being on a boat all day in the sun with only water to drink.
Now you're getting everybody excited. You're not even going to talk about it.
Oh, my God.
We're not even going to discuss it. Everybody's, got everybody on the edge of their seat.
This is what we call a teaser in our industry.
I see you in the industry call it tea. Okay, I got you.
All right, so that's coming up in the next few weeks. But first, this week we did try our third and final beer, and it's a beer that from a brewery that we've talked about in the past, from the great state of Maine in the city of Portland, known as Lawn Pine. Did you forget how it tastes?
No, because last time I haven't had this yet.
Oh, I thought you had this.
No, I like I said, I had the Lone Pine Pale Ale, which is, my partner's brother assures me is a staple in the town of Portland in Maine. Like, it's like the Budweiser of Portland. Like everyone, every pretty much restaurant or bar
has Lone Pine.
Has that as kind of like it's like the standard.
Yeah. I wish I knew that, because I would have found these guys out a lot sooner. There's a lot, as we talked about in our very first podcast, there is a lot of beer in the city of Portland.
Yeah, that
per capita
in particular. Yeah, I mean Bissell. I mean, it's just so much up there, and like this one is fairly recent. Like Lone Pine, even though I know it's a staple up there, is it had to contend with the likes of a lot of other beers from up there to get in. But I guess there's the big selling point is the fact that at least with the Lone Pine, it is such a light drinking beer that almost every cross section of people who drink beer can get on can drink something like that.
The crazy thing about ales and IPAs in particular, or ales in particular and IPAs, there's always like an aftertaste, almost like I don't want to say cotton mouth, but just an aftertaste that's left that sometimes you've got to wash down.
Yes.
A lot of the beers that we've had as of recent,
yes,
especially from Lone Pine
IPAs in particular, yes, they leave almost like a taste.
Yeah.
Now, we got off subject here. Now, Nick's is drinking their IPA.
Never got into it. Yeah, the bright.
This is Lone Pine Brewing Company's. This is their basic IPA. And I just tasted a little bit. I'm going to taste a little more just so you know what I'm doing.
7.1% alcohol, and you don't taste it. If you ask me if I had to guess the percentage on here, I'd say 5.5, 6, maybe 6.3.
I'm going to say that just tasting that beer, it's much more citrusy than it is hoppy.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a huge hop in your face taste, but it definitely has an extreme citrus taste.
And for the name Lone Pine, it has a very piney taste.
Yes, which I think you get in almost all.
You do?
Almost
but
all
this one is pretty
IPAs almost have somewhat of a piney taste because of the hops.
This right here has a good balance of the citrus and pine.
Personally. Yes. Although I say it's lacking in the hoppiness.
Yes.
I would say it's citrusy and piney, but not so much
bitter.
Not so much hoppy.
Not bitter, but hoppy.
I would say, if you're a fan of the in-your-face hoppiness, this is not where you want to go. I would say it's almost like not so much an India Pale Ale, but it reminds me kind of the Pale Ale.
Yeah, Pale Ale.
With just maybe a little more citrus.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? If I am somebody who loves a lot of hoppiness, not that that's what I'm looking for, but I like it. I enjoy it. It's a flavor. Obviously, if I like IPAs and I like Pale Ales, I like hoppy. But this, you're right, doesn't have a whole lot of hoppy taste to it, and I still like it. I still enjoy it.
Now this is once again coming from someone who's not a huge fan of very hoppy beers. Mm-hmm. I would tend to tend towards this beer because it isn't so hoppy. I can deal with a citrusness. I can deal with a pininess. It's so hoppy I can't deal with, and I say I like it because it isn't so in your face hoppiness.
Yeah, but I like it.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
And once again, they do a good job. We were talking earlier about breweries. It shows when a brewery is worried about the bottom line,
mm-hmm.
and it shows when the brewery is worried about making good beer.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
It's something that it was funny because as we were walking into 151 to go talk to Kevin, you brought up a point to me that there are some brewers out there that are more of the Chevy Fords. They want to put out a good product that people are going to enjoy, that's going to get the job done.
They want to make cars. They want to sell cars.
But then there's some brewers out there that are the Mercedes-Benz and the Ferraris. And
they want to sell excellent cars.
Yes. It's more about the experience than it is about.
It's not just bottom line. It's not just pumping out enough product so you can make money. you can tell the brewers who got into it for the sheer enjoyment of experimentation, of seeing what happened if I do this or I do that, for the sake of good beer, not for the sake of selling beer. I think that you'll see that. Some of these breweries, they pop up, and they're not worried about experimentation, not worried about finding out what works and what doesn't. It's like, all right, we need to get up and brewing, and start selling beer. You can almost, you can tell sometimes, what's gone into it. The quality of the ingredients, how well they blend. The cost of the beer too. Sometimes they just basically looked at an ingredient list, bought what they needed, put it in, did it by the book, and came up with a beer where, people that are really into it's caring about finding, you just don't find a recipe and do the recipe, brew your beer, and you get something. These people care about making a quality, drinkable product.
Yeah, and what's funny is I don't want to completely change the subject.
Fine.
There's one thing that you said that Kevin also pointed out. It's funny because you sat there and you said all of these things. We sat down, and then Kevin started bringing them up. And one of the things he said, too, is one of the great things that you notice about a good brewer is they're not afraid to take risks.
A chance.
Yeah. To go and reach that next level of flavor when it comes to a beer. By experimentation. And you were talking, it's funny, we literally sat there and you were talking about it as we walk in. So these guys really know their stuff. I, on the other hand, not so much. Another thing I like to point out, too, is that there's guys like Wolf's Hollow. We have a mutual friend, Jesse, who he recently bought a house that has very high sulfur in the water.
Yep.
And he was trying to figure out what is the best.
You got to chlorinate it. You got to salt it.
What's the best system?
Yeah.
Are you using the reverse osmosis and blah, 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 and UV lights? And we were over at Wolf's Hollow one day, and he was talking to one of the guys over there, and they were saying, yes, that some of the water that they bring in, they use UV lights and all kinds of stuff to make even just the water itself.
Well, that's your main ingredient if you think about it.
Yeah.
And it's like any other thing, baking or cooking. If you start with a bad base, there's not much you can do after that. You can add
all the
the greatest,
in the world,
all the best ingredients you want. Once you're starting with a bad base, you're starting from behind.
So it's those kind of breweries that are going the extra mile to make sure that the product that they put out is not only quality but also flavorful
and consistent.
Yeah.
Consistency is important. You don't want one day it's your favorite beer, it tastes great. The next batch of beers, terrible.
Yeah.
Which is very unlikely, but it can happen.
All right, man. So coming up next week, I think next week we might actually have our very first guest.
I'm easy, whatever you want to do.
It's one or two people, so I'm looking forward to that. It's either going to be somebody who is extremely knowledgeable, not only about beer, but wine, liquor, the whole nine, or another guy who's been in the bar industry for a very, very long time. We'll see who gets to the microphone first. And that's the
It's a race.
Yeah, it's a race between two of those people. That's who we're expecting next week. So that's it. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of the third episode of the Capital Brew Podcast.
I can't believe it's happened.
Yeah, 3. Oh, and you know what? By the time you hear this, we have the domain name, thecapitalbrewpodcast.com. So go ahead and check out our brand new, spanking new website. We've got a Facebook page, obviously the Capital Brew Podcast on Facebook.
Shameless plug.
Yes, we've got an Instagram now, the Capital Brew Podcast, and we also have a Twitter, the Capital
Mind
Brew
you, this
Podcast.
is all his work. I would never no idea how to do any of this stuff whatsoever.
Well, you have your strengths, I've got mine. So.
I'll let you know when we find them.
But now we have a website. We've got Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. Make sure you check us out. We're also on iHeart, radioapp.com. So, download the iHeart Radio app. Oh, and I can't forget, there's another person who did a lot of social media push for us for free. Somebody who I'd almost call our third partner. His name is Mike. He's from Marcom. He does marketing, and he has done a great job. You and I have not really discussed all the stuff he's done for us, but he's behind the scenes, getting our name out there.
Really?
And, yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's been. You actually met him before. His name's Mike. He's a really good dude. So, like I said, he's almost like our third partner. If you are looking for logos, if you're looking for marketing, reach out to Marcom. I'm going to go ahead and put a link on our website and maybe our Facebook page. And definitely, please check him out. He's done leaps and bounds for us, and I'm extremely grateful for everything he did. But until next week, this has been the third episode of the Capital Brew Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Seacrest out.